intense testing of the MemberSuite 2014 release. It's the largest release we've had in a little over a year, and there are a number of really big changes, really big features we want to talk about today. You should have received an email with all of the features. So there's the highlights, but there's a link to a Zendesk article with every single one of the items that are included in this release. Hopefully you had a chance to look at that and you've brought your questions. I'm going to go through the broad strokes, the things that are the most compelling, and then open it up for questions after and answer any questions that you all might have. So what we're going to do first is talk about the billing module, which is the flagship new feature, the centerpiece of this release. We're going to talk about changes we've made, including allowing electronic checks and what we've done with the payment options that are now available. We're going to talk about automated email blasts, and we're going to cover a bunch of other smaller but still pretty substantial changes that we made. And then we're going to spend most of the webinar doing Q&A. So the billing module is really the biggest thing. Is probably 40–50% of this release, and it's a complete from the ground up rewrite of how we do renewals and drops right now. It's used for currently for memberships and subscriptions. It's designed to be extensible. In the future, we may add certifications or other things that people want to bill for. It does three major things. It does renewals, which is generating initial renewal orders. So if your membership is about to expire, ordering you a new membership. Reminders, which is a new concept. This did not exist prior to this release. So not generating a new order, but seeing that somebody has an open invoice on their membership or subscription and needs to be reminded to go pay it. And then drops, which is essentially terminating memberships and subscriptions past some configured grace period. And these replace all of the existing membership renewal and drop processes. Today we're going to really take a high-level view of it, but we're going to be putting out a tutorial that goes into a deeper dive for those of you who are doing your renewals the next couple of weeks, so that you can learn how it works in a more comprehensive fashion. The design goals of the billing were myriad. There were a lot of things we wanted to accomplish with the billing module. The first thing and the biggest thing was evergreen memberships. So we had the ability for members to come online and indicate that they wanted to automatically have their card charged when they renewed, but it was actually a very tedious thing to do in the back end. And so we wanted to make that seamless and easy. We wanted to also enable corporate and group billing. We'd been getting more and more feedback from our customers that there was a need to be able to bill individuals or bill companies for their employees' memberships. And that was also something that up until now required a professional services engagement and custom code, but we wanted to make that really easy. We wanted to unify billing, and so if you have a membership that's about to expire and a subscription that's about to expire, you should get one invoice, unless of course you're billing different cards, but you should be able to see all that's happening on one invoice. And the biggest thing we wanted to do with billing is increase transparency and visibility and allow you to preview the billing run before it actually ran. It's a little bit of a black box now. When you do renewals, you hit the button and you kind of know what's supposed to happen, but you don't really have a lot of control after you hit go. And you have no ability to see what's going to happen before it happens. And that was the single biggest piece of feedback we got from those of you who have been doing renewals that we felt like we need to address. We also wanted to automate billing. So those of you who are doing drops and don't want to have to manually go in and do drops every month, now we have the ability to have these things renewed automatically, have these billing runs happen on a regular basis. And we also really wanted to target scale. So as we get larger and larger customers, some of you are doing renewals for 20 and 30,000 members at a time. We wanted to make that really robust and solid and make it auditable so that it could be reliably used for large data sets. And there are smaller design goals, but those were the biggest things we had in mind. And obviously this really required us to go back to the drawing board and reevaluate how we were approaching billing as a feature of the product, and it inspired us to essentially realize this was large enough and involved enough for it to be its own module with its own configuration and its own workflows, and that's really what we did. Okay, so let's take a look at a high level, the billing module. Okay. So the major concept of the billing module is the idea of a billing cycle. So right now, when you go in to do a renewal, the system will ask you for some information about what types of members you want to renew, what the status is you want to renew, what the types, and that is entered every single time that you enter the membership renewal. And the billing cycle eliminates that. So you define what you want in the billing cycle, what members should be included if you're doing subscriptions, what subscribers should be included, and you actually have the ability to, in a very deep way, filter it. So you're not just restricted to what we have in our screen. You can actually filter the billing based on any field on the membership record. So if I wanted to, for instance, only bill members who are individuals and who are located in Arkansas, I could do that here. And so a lot more flexibility about how you bill members. When you create a new billing cycle, in addition to asking you who you're billing, the system also has this roles option here. That's another really a requested feature, which is this idea that if you're billing an organization, the system should figure out that it needs to send emails automatically to people who are tied to that organization in specific roles. So you might only want to send to the billing contact or only want to send to the primary contact. This essentially makes the email address field of an organization a little bit obsolete, because now MemberSuite can, through this function and through the email blast function, automatically target contacts in organizations based on the email. And that's a pretty well requested feature. So you only have to set up your billing cycle once, and then when you actually want to run the billing cycle, you initiate a billing run. We're going to do that. Okay. Now in the billing run, I can do a number of different things. I can do the initial billing, which is what most of you have been doing up until now. I can do first, second, and third reminders, which are based on dates, and I can perform drops. Okay, so drops are what actually go and terminate the membership. Okay. Now, the next thing here is, how do we want to do the billing run? So usually you're going to want to do a preview. You don't want MemberSuite to run the full run. You want it to just tell you what it's going to do first. Okay. The other option is, go ahead and process the orders and drops, but don't send out any emails. And the third option is, okay, do everything. Process the orders and the drops and send out the emails. We're going to just go ahead and click the preview. Okay. Now the system is going to ask you for dates. Okay, and we're going to just back up here. I want to actually use an effective date. The effective run date is essentially when should this billing run act like the date is. So you might be running it on the 3rd of the month, but you want it to run as if it was the end of the previous month. Okay, which is what we're going to do here. So it's going to give you date ranges, and these are overridable, just some default ranges here. Okay, and we're going to set a drop date October. And so for the drops, I can set a termination, and this will look very similar to what you all are doing now in a separate process, which is dropping. I can say continue, and I can review it. And then when I click save, the system's going to ask if I'm sure, and it will save the billing run and actually start the process of executing it. Okay. So now as I'm looking at a billing run, I can see a lot of information. Okay. I get information about the dates and ranges that were selected, but what I'm really interested in is the statistical information. So what's happening, oops, I'm currently running this all on my local machine, so it's actually running the same billing run on my machine as it is running the server, which is not the way it is in production. But we'll go back here to statistics. It's freed up a little bit now, so we don't get that deadlock issue. And I can see all the information about the activities that are running. And so I can see how many candidates there were. I can see how many renewal orders there were. There haven't been any yet. All the activities. I get a lot of visibility about what's happening in the system. And this is really what you all asked for, the ability to really monitor what's going on in a billing run. Okay, so now the status is pending activity review, and that's the status because the system is essentially just finished running the the previews, and it's letting me go through and actually preview the statistics to make sure things look the way that they should. Let's take a second to just go look at the actual workflow and understand what's really happening here. Okay, so the first thing that the billing module is doing is when you run it, and we just ran it, it's actually selecting a candidate based on the criteria. So it knows what the billing, it knows what the billing cycle, what the criteria was, because we set it up. If you remember, we got to choose what the billing cycle criteria was. Okay, and it actually is allowing me to figure out based on the criteria what records are going to be included in the billing run, and that's called we call those in our billing parlance a candidate. So you're a candidate for the billing run if something about your membership record corresponds to what was set up in the criteria. So if we had and we set that the criteria should allow anyone who expired between the month of the first of the month and the end of the month, and your membership did, then you would be a criteria. Okay. So next thing that the system is going to do is figure out based on the criteria who should be included in the run. Okay. So if you think about it, we have the ability now to not just include a membership in the run, but also to be able to say that the person should not be the one that's actually billed. So in the case of a corporate membership, I, Andrew Ryan, might have my membership be a candidate in the billing cycle, but I might not be the one getting billed. And that's a key feature in the billing module, this ability to say that somebody else should get billed for my membership automatically, and it should really kind of be transparent. Okay. So the candidate record is the record that is defined as the owner. I'm sorry, is the record that is actually being billed, but the member is the person who owns the candidate. So if MemberSuite was being subject to corporate billing, there might be 5 employees who had memberships who were about to expire, but only MemberSuite's the member of the billing run. They're the people who are getting the bill. Once that's all defined, the activities are generated, and the activities are MemberSuite figuring out what's going to happen. So before MemberSuite does something, it very deliberately says, here's what's going to happen, and gives me a chance to preview it and take action on it before I approve it. So let's actually go see that. Oops. There we go. Okay, so if we look here, we can see everything that's happening in the run. Okay, we can see all the records that have been included for billing, all the records that have been included for drops. We didn't have any drops in this one. We'd have all the ones that are being included for reminders. Okay, so I get to actually preview what's going to happen before it happens. Okay, so now I can go and let's say, for instance, I want to take a look at Mr. Crick here, and I want to say, well, what's going to happen to this person? And I can see all the activities that are queued up. So because of Albertine Crick's membership record, which is expiring in November, I'm going to go and process an order and send an email. Okay, and I can actually view the text of the order, and I can actually see what the order is going to look like before it's processed. And if you remember our initial design goal was to allow folks to be able to preview really what was going to happen as specifically as possible before it happened, and this is what we mean. So I can go and look and see, well, is he going to get charged properly? Is he renewing properly? I can review the email that's going to get sent to this person based on what type of member they are and how they're being notified. So I get to look at all of this before the run happens. And if you look again, if we go back to this billing run, we're still pending activity review. So the billing run is not completed yet. It's waiting for me to tell it what's going to happen and what to do. Okay, and here I can start to say, well, what's right and what's not right, and I notice, well, there are no drops, and why are there no drops? I wanted drops, but nobody's getting dropped, and I'm realizing, well, I have a bad drop date here. This drop date is wrong, and the drop date should be today. So I can look at this run and say, you know what, this isn't right. I want to cancel it. Okay, and the system will cancel it. Nothing will happen. Nobody got renewed, nothing happened. So I'm going to reinitiate this billing run. The drops and first reminders here, and I'll leave the setting as it is. We'll set a termination reason here, and we'll set a new status here. Okay, so the billing run's running. We've modified it. We've looked at it, and we've said this doesn't look right. Something is wrong. Okay, and we've reviewed it some more and realized we think we know what we have to do to correct it. Okay, and now that we've corrected it, there are drops. Okay, so we realize, all right, this looks a little bit better. There should be about 50 people getting dropped in this billing run, but I still have the ability to go in and review the people getting dropped. Many of you have requested the ability to, particularly for drops, have a really fine-grained control over who gets dropped and who doesn't. And you see that's what we have here. Okay, so I actually have the ability to look at this drop record and say, you know, Annabelle Hildebrand, she's important. We really don't want to drop her. We do want to drop everybody else, but we don't really want her included in this drop, even though her membership apparently is a little bit old and has expired and she really should be dropped. So we're going to go and we're going to take this activity that's about to happen that has not happened yet, and we're going to cancel it. Okay, and it won't be run. And the system is saying, hey, make sure you cancel everything. And in other words, you don't want her, she's not going to get dropped, but you don't then want her to get an email saying that she's gotten dropped. So you want to cancel both. And you might ask, well, why don't you just cancel it all at one time? And you have to remember, she might have multiple things happening to her. She might have a subscription that's getting renewed at the same time that her membership's getting dropped because billing is unified. And so you want really fine-grained control over what happens. So now if I go back to this billing run and I look at it again, nothing's happened. So if I look at the execution status, it's 0, but you'll see I can see the canceled activities and I can see all the pending activities here, everything that's about to happen in the system. Okay, when I'm ready, I can say, let's continue this billing one. We're ready for it to go. It's asking me where do I want to go, and we'll say execute. And the billing run process will continue. Now, it's running here on my computer. I'm doing this locally, but it'll take a little bit longer. But what will happen is it'll go into our job execution farm, and our job service will begin to parse this out and start to run everything that has to happen. And you'll see here, you expect 102 orders. Oh, you can already see the orders being generated here. Okay, so it's processing 102 orders here on my local machine, which is actually pretty impressive. It's not using a server. Okay, you can monitor the percentage. We have an overall percentage, which is the overall percent of activities that have completed from the ones that need to complete versus the orders. And the orders is the longest sort of process, so we actually show you that percentage broken out. But I can completely manage all of this. Of course, canceled activities won't get processed. I can look at the renewal orders. Okay. Now here's the other thing I get to do, and this was another important thing that you all asked for, which was I get to see in a very good way what the errors were. Okay, so what's wrong with the order? If something fails, why does it fail? And I want to be able to get in there and figure it out and fix it and rerun it and not have it be a black hole. So I can look at this error and I can view the error, and I can see this was a forced error. So we actually have the ability to force errors for debugging and testing. So if I actually go to her record, other information, I have this in the notes, and MemberSuite this is for our debugging and our own testing purposes. If it sees this, it actually will fail the order. It'll fail the renewal order. So it's useful for doing exactly this, which is testing to see when things fail. So I can remove this and rerun the billing run and get to a place where this membership gets renewed properly. You'll notice that while I'm looking at the membership, I also get to see all of the billing run activities tied to it. So I can see every time that this person was reminded, when they had an initial bill, when they got dropped. I can see the whole history of that, and I can go right to the billing run to actually see what the criteria was and when it ran, and so forth. Okay. So this is still, it's finished all of its orders. It's still processing and working through all of its emails. But you can kind of get a good sense of what's happening here. Okay. The other thing I can do, if I go to the billing cycle, I might not want to have to do this every time. So I can create what's called a scheduled billing run, which is very similar to a billing run. Okay. But instead of it running one time, it runs multiple times. And you can tell it, hey, don't actually run, just start the process and email me, and I'll come in and I'll look. Or you can say, actually, go ahead and run, do these drops. And I can tell it, all right, well, I want to do this at the end of the month, every month, right? So I can just, or I might want to do it at the first of the month, what have you, and when it should stop. And the system will process that information. And instead of specific dates, you'll have relative dates. So I might want this to be relative to the day before the first of the month, and I might want the drop date to be 30 days before. So I can specify all that, and the system will figure that out and actually run the run in a recurring basis. So a lot more here, and this is really just sort of an overview, but I hope you can see that there's really a lot of thought given to how we're actually going about billing, and a lot of flexibility given to you to not just see what's going to happen before it happens, but also being able to do things like modify the billing run before it actually runs. We really think this is going to make you happy, and we're really internally excited about this feature of the release. Okay, so the next thing to talk about are payment options. So we've added some really interesting things with regards to how your members can pay you. The biggest one being electronic checks. So we now support e-checks or ACH transactions. You just have to turn them on. Many of you already have them on in your authorized.net account. We use MemberSuite to run MemberSuite, and I can't really emphasize enough how much of this release comes from the fact that we actually have to use MemberSuite to do all of our renewals of your contracts, all of our processing and our reminders and our invoicing. And some of you said, well, I would like to pay by check. So a lot of what we've done from a usability standpoint comes from the fact that we have to use it to actually run our business. We have a CFO, like many of you have a CFO, and a controller, like you all have a controller. We get the feedback about our financial module and how it pulls into QuickBooks because we use QuickBooks just like you do. And that really helps us hone the product and iterate into what really makes sense for you, the user. And this is a great example of that. Once we knew we needed electronic checks, we realized, well, we need to allow you to turn this on and off. Maybe you might want certain people not to pay by checks, or you might want certain people to be able to only pay by credit card in certain situations. We have situations, for instance, some of you have attempted to make very large purchases via our portal with a credit card. And it turns out that if you are paying $15,000 on a credit card, Authorized.net tends not to like it if it's software. And so we need the ability to limit the credit card payments based on the size. So we realized, well, we needed a way to do all of these different things, and we came up with this idea of portal payment rules. So go back to MemberSuite here. If I go here to process an order, I now have the option of electronic checks. Okay, they can now be saved. So if they are saved, then folks can use them both in the portal, which is where it makes a lot of sense, but also in the console. So you can, essentially say, well, I'm taking an order and I want to use this person's American Express ending in 65008, and you don't have to rekey it in again, which is pretty important feature. Okay, but you also want to control who can use it for what. If we go here in the portal, this is our sample portal here. Say we go to the online store. Okay, now here's Andrew Jones, and he gets to use his saved payment methods. Okay, well, he gets to pay with the credit card. So we've actually completely revamped the order checkout process. We've added the idea of saved credit cards. We've added a little bit of a prettier interface. We've added the ability to use an existing billing address instead of always having to type in a new billing address. But if you see here, only credit cards are available, and that's because by default, members will only let you use credit cards to pay, and it will only let you do a bill me later if all the products are set to bill me later, right? Which is another thing that's a little bit frustrating because you might have 20 different things that you want to be billed later. You don't want to have to go for each product and remember to check the box. So portal payment rules are how you actually are able to tell MemberSuite what payments should be made in what situations. Okay, so here we have this portal payment rule. It's called allow invoicing, and we can set the criteria for who it should apply to. So we can say, all right, if it's an individual or if it's an organization, they can pay later. If it's an organization of a particular type, they can pay later. If they're a member of a particular type or have status, they can pay later. You can actually have specific customers. You can say, hey, these 5 people, we trust them. They can go ahead and actually do a bill me later. The rest can't. Okay, so you get this complete control over the criteria, even down to the order amount. So for us at MemberSuite, we probably say anywhere between anything greater than $10,000, we probably would say you can't use credit cards. So we would specify that rule. Okay, we're going to set the reverse rule up here. We're not going to set a minimum, but we'll say we'll do it by discount code. So we'll say if you have this discount code, then you are allowed to pay with e-checks, pay with payroll deduction, pay with bill me later. Okay, and we have this customer message here that says discount code accepted, and you'll see where that shows up. So now if I go here back to this person's record and I add the discount code, which you'll see is in a different place, as we've really completely looked at this, it was applied, and because it was applied, I'm getting shown this message that was set up all the way down here. And I now have the option to pay not just with a credit card, but with a checking account, with a saved checking account, okay, with a payroll deduction, which is managed by you. We just record the payment, or with an invoice. Bill me later is what you all have it set to now. Of course, you can change any of this text. So we have a really robust way not just to accept all these different payments, but for you to tell MemberSuite exactly who and in what scenarios particular payment types can be used. And we're actually pretty proud about that. We think it's a really good feature, and we know we're going to use it. We know we need it. We also, as we mentioned, had saved credit cards, and we've also taken recurring billing, so evergreen memberships, evergreen subscriptions, and we've also added on the ability to do electronic payments with gifts and pledges, and we've bundled this into one and made it really intuitive. So now, if I'm Andrew Jones in the portal, I can go to my membership, and I can see that very much like any membership, I have a credit card tied to it. If I have a credit card tied to it, then when the billing engine goes to renew the membership, it will attempt to process this card. Okay, I, Andrew Jones, can come in here at any time and update my credit card information. Okay, so I can say I don't want to use that one, I want to use this one, or I want to use a brand new card, or you know what, just delete the billing info. I don't want any card at all. I want to be manually sent an invoice when I renew. Okay, so this exists not just for memberships, but for gifts. So we've kind of tweaked the giving history screen here, so now I can see all my open pledges and recurring gifts. For those of you using the billing module, the fundraising module, this will be really welcome news to you. I can see this particular gift. It's a pledge. It was suspended because the credit card was declined. Okay, and I can go and update the billing information on this gift and re-enable the recurring gift. So a lot of options here. Also for those of you that are using, installment plans. All the orders for which you're using billing schedules or installment plans can be updated here through the portal as well. So we've, in a real way that wasn't there before, allowed people in the portal to manage their billing and what credit cards are being used. And if I go to save payment options, here I can see all of the saved credit cards and checks that are on my account. This is like the Amazon screen where you're looking at your saved credit cards. And I can add a check or credit card, delete one that's already there. So all of this is now available, or in this release will be available in the baseline portal. Next thing we want to talk about here, and I keep those questions coming in. They're great. We're going to go through them as much as we can after the. I think this is our last feature we're going to review, but the automated recurring email blast was a really, really big requested feature, and the use case here is that you might want email sent out on a regular basis. So, for instance, you might want to send it out all to members who are about to expire, but maybe haven't been billed, because reminders are going to remind people who've already been sent a renewal order, a renewal invoice. But you might want to send emails to people before they've been billed, or you might not even use reminders at all, depending on how you all are going to set up your billing. So you might want that sent out on the 25th of every month, and right now it's a manual process, and you want that automated. Or you might want, when it comes time for an event to open, you might want to wake up every week and send an email to people who haven't submitted required information. Or you might want to send an email to everyone whose cards are about to expire. That's a use case we've heard on their membership. So the automated recurring email blast will generate email blasts that are completely trackable, and you can see when you go to the e-marketing module, you can see that I can browse recurring email blasts. When I create a new email blast here, the system, whereas before it just gave me the option to put the email information in, now is asking me for schedule and recurrent. So when is it going to be sent? Is it just immediately? Well, that's essentially what the way that it works now. But I can tell it I want it to be sent at some point in the future, or I can say, you know what, this is a clone. I don't even want you to send it at all. It's just a template. I'm going to clone it in the future. Okay. We also added the ability to suppress emails. So you might want an email blast to go out, but you might have a couple dozen people or a dozen people who you don't want to get the blast. And you don't want to have to go in and manually revise the search and manually have to pull people out. It's a real pain. So you can just enter their emails in here, and they'll be suppressed. Okay, so if I do this and I set it up on the schedule, on the next screen it will ask me, okay, well, what's the schedule? How often do you want it sent out? Every day, every week, every month? How do you want it sent out? When and until when? Okay, so you get to control all of that. We're pretty excited about that, and it's something a lot of you have asked for often, and we listened and we added it. So there are other changes that aren't sort of big, huge new features, but are worth mentioning. Okay, the 360 optimization, you might have already caught this, but the 360 screen is the slowest piece of our product, and we've done a lot of work to make that not so. So when you pull up a record, the reason why it's so slow is because we're pulling all this information. Every one of these things you see down here is a database hit to go pull, and even though it's blank because there are none of those records, we had to pull it from the database to discover that. But believe it or not, this isn't even really where the big drag comes from. The big drag comes from all these aggregations we do. So being able to see open invoices and look at fundraising, last gifts, and so forth, and awards. So pulling that just takes a little bit of time. And so when you pull up a 360 screen, you'll notice it'll take anywhere from a couple seconds to maybe 5 or 6 seconds, depending on how busy the server is. And since most of you are constantly pulling up 360 screens, these aggregations are constantly hitting the database and are also putting load on the database that you're seeing in other areas like order creation. So what we do now is, instead of loading it all at once, you probably have already seen this, we actually just load what you need to see. So first we load this. This comes in a little bit later, and then as you click, then we run it. Okay, and so this drastically reduces both the load time and pulling up the 360 screen, and it reduces the load on the database, which we think will just make for an overall more a better performance for everybody. And just to compare the difference, it's just let's see if we can go here. You can go to your preferences, and you can disable this if for whatever reason you don't want to do it. Back to the record now. So that's the difference. And remember, I'm loading this on my local machine, but if you can see the difference between how long it took to load when I wasn't doing the on-demand, and then if I go back to doing the on-demand, it's a pretty big difference. So we're obviously happy about this. So that's a big optimization that we've made. Searches within searches. another minor annoyance that we've heard again and again and that we've experienced as users of our own system. Lots of times you want to drill down on things. So you're in one of these screens and you want to be able to drill down and filter. And so maybe I'm searching for all individuals. We'll just go ahead and run this search. And now that I've run the search and found all individuals, I want to filter on maybe a particular email. Well, now you can. If you go here, right-click and say filter. Maybe I want to find everybody that's got MSN.com. Okay, and I can filter. And this works anywhere you see one of these tables. So a lot of you have dozens of membership dues products. And when it's time to go find them, it's a little bit annoying to go have to scroll through and find them. Now you can go through and filter them. Okay, and the last place it is, and we sort of saved the best for last here, is on the 360 screen. So you can do the same thing on the 360 screen. Pull this back here up. So you may have a situation where you're looking for a particular financial transaction, and there may be a lot of them. And so you might want to really easily just filter this on the type of the transaction or on the amount, and you have the ability to do that now on the 360 screen. So MemberSuite is really flexible now in letting you not just filter, but also drill down and take action on a subset of records in any one of these any one of these one-clicks, also on any search results screen or any managed screen. So that's a new optimization that we like a lot. Automatic chapter updates. So we now have the ability, you'll notice there's a lot of, when you go to manage your membership dues, there's a lot more stuff. Okay. If I go to edit a membership dues product, we added a lot more here. This option, bill primary organization, tells MemberSuite, you know what, when you do the billing, don't bill me, bill my company. And so you can set that at the membership dues product level so that you might want certain memberships like corporate employee memberships to bill the company, but other membership types not to bill the company. And so you can set that up at the bill primary organization here. But we also now have these chapter and section options, which previously only existed on the membership organization, now can be overridden on the membership dues product. So I can tell MemberSuite that the default chapter mode is don't use chapters, but for one or two membership types, do use chapters or do enable multiple chapters. We also have this postal code mapping mode, which can be overwritten. But if you click this box, automatically update a chapter when a member's address changes. Whenever a member's address changes for any reason, even if it's a bulk update, the system will go in to try and figure out what the new chapter should be, and will actually go and update the chapter. Okay. The reinstatement options also are now live both on the membership organization, but can be overridden on the membership dues product, which is also a feature request that we added. The chapter dues, for those of you, the chapter postal code mapping now has been hardened, and now we don't just allow postal codes, we actually allow you to specify states and countries too. So if you wanted to essentially have a chapter postal code, anybody in in the country of Georgia or the country of Bosnia just gets put into a particular chapter. You don't have to worry about postal codes now. We also have the ability now to override shipping, taxes, billing, and revenue recognition for orders. So this was another thing that is often requested and a little bit of an annoyance for those of you who wanted it. When you have say a taxable product where there are some products here and then there's some taxes, you want the ability to override the taxes or override the shipping charge. And now if you click the override taxes, you can see the taxes specified, and you actually have the ability to override this, remove it, change it, and do whatever you'd like. You also, on a given product, can tell MemberSuite to override the billing just for this order or override the revenue recognition. So before you had to create a product for every iteration of billing or revenue recognition that you had, and now you don't. If you just have a one-off, you want to sell a T-shirt, but you want to let this one person just pay for it, over 12 months, you don't have to go create another T-shirt product. Now you can override this on the order. And the last thing that we did was invoice aging snapshots. And so one of the things we felt like we really weren't as strong on as we needed to be was being able to manage invoices and do point-in-time snapshots of invoice total amount so that you can perform aging reports and actually get point-in-time aging reports. And so if I'm going to go here and I'm going to just create an invoice here, taxable product, we'll just create this invoice. Now we'll receive a payment on this invoice. Okay, we'll make it a partial payment here. And we'll process another partial payment. So what we have to do, because payments come in over time, if you wanted to get an invoice aging report as of the last of the month, we have to take snapshots of every time an invoice balance due or total changes. And so what you're seeing now here is that we are taking those snapshots, and you can you can view them when you're looking at an invoice, but now when you go to pull an invoice aging report, ports may not be enabled on my computer here, but I think they are. Let's go see. Let's just print a summary here. Okay, so now I always have the as of date option. So that's been added to all of the reports. So I can actually go and pull open invoices as of a particular date, and we don't have to guess about it based on the payments that were in the system or anything like that. We actually know because we take snapshots. So this is all going to be this way moving forward. We're going to try after the release to populate snapshots for invoices before the release based on payment dates, but the going forward it'll be much more accurate regardless of what we do. All right, so those are the highlights of the release. We added a lot of other features. I think there are a little over 150 different things we added. Those are the highlights, and now I'd kind of like to open it up for questions. And we're going to start here. Okay, so so the first question is, if you use the billing cycle, do you still have to create batches? The answer is no. If you go back to this billing run here, what you'll notice is that, let's see, there was a batch automatically created with the same name as the billing run. Okay, so you didn't have to actually create a batch. It created a batch for you, and that batch holds all the invoices in that billing run. So all the invoices that were generated because of orders, it actually is holding it in here. So I can see all the renewal orders created and so forth. Okay. Next question is, can the reminder emails be customized with our own text? Yes, they can. You'll see when you go to, there's a couple of different ways you can do it. We have a baseline email for all reminders. We're going to use a filter here. Okay, so we have a baseline system emails here for when you get dropped, when you have an initial billing. Notice, by the way, and this is a really, really big change, we no longer are attaching invoices to emails, and there are several reasons for this. The first is it's slow. It's the biggest reason why the renewal emails take so long to go out and get to process. It's a slow process. It drains the system. It sends much larger emails out than normal, which is a red flag for our email provider. But also, once they're gone, they can't be changed. You can't track them. You can't see who clicked on them and so forth. By sending it as a link, we now then have the ability to fix, for instance, a broken email or broken invoice. If we find a typo in the invoice, it's not gone out to 10,000 people already. It's a lot less work and just a lot less load on the system, so the billing runs perform a lot better and a lot faster. And so for that reason, we've moved away from attaching emails. But this is the default email. Not only can you probably should go and customize these emails to make sure that they meet your needs when the billing module is deployed. And when we go through the tutorial for the billing module, we'll actually walk you through the things you should do to prepare for using the billing module. But in addition to setting the default email, you may have noticed when we looked at the membership dues product that I could also override those emails for a given product. So I might want my VIPs to get a different email when they're reminded or when they're dropped than everybody else. And so I can override them at the membership product level. So you get two ways to customize those. And the next question is, will reminders go to those who have already paid their invoice? And the answer is no, they will not. Okay. The question is linking the payments directly to QuickBooks. Well, what happens when somebody puts their credit card into their membership and says, automatically bill my credit card, what the billing module does is gets the credit card, decrypts it, and tries to run it like it would if the payment was done on the portal. And so the payments flow into QuickBooks the same way that they would any other payment. Okay. The next question is, can reminder emails respect communication preferences? And they don't. It's probably a good idea, but right now reminder emails will go out to who you send them to. I would say that part of the reason why we didn't do that is that the communication preferences are really designed for e-marketing, where people may or may not want to get certain emails. CAN spam and all the related sort of ethical guidelines around sending email exempt situations in which somebody actually already has a relationship with you. They've already opted into becoming a member, and now you need to tell them your membership's about to expire. That's not really considered spam because it's not like you're marketing them or you're sending them unsolicited email. You're sending them notifications about an account that they have actually willfully opted into. So that's why we didn't include or have it respect communications preferences. But certainly we could. On the note of communication preferences, this is in the release notes, but it's something else probably good to show you while we're here. We now have one of the biggest complaints we get with our e-marketing and with organizations is that when you're sending an email to companies, you want to be able to automatically send those companies emails to the contacts who are linked to the record. Okay, we now have that ability. We call it message category flowdown. So what you can do is you can tell MemberSuite, all right, for this given relationship type of primary contact, I want you to send any emails of this category to the actual linked individuals. So you can imagine that you might have a billing contact relationship type, and you want that relationship type to get all the emails that are of category billing or category billing notices or something like that, and you can do that. And that really makes the email address on the organization a little bit obsolete, because now MemberSuite can automatically figure out and send to not just the organization's email address, which has to be manually edited, but any linked contacts who meet the criteria that will automatically get it to. And that's something else that a lot of people ask for, and quite frankly, we need. So we need to be able to send an email out to all of our customers who are members in our system and have the right person get the email, regardless of whether or not the email address had been updated. So it was something we did and felt like it was a good thing to add. So just some other questions. Will the billing process completely get rid of the member renewal process? So no, members can still go in the portal and actually renew if they want to, right? So they can actually still go and say renew my membership and create their own renewal. This just proactively goes ahead and actually sends them creates an order and sends an invoice. They can still override it. So you're not going to get rid of that. Corporate billing. Corporate billing is optional. So it only has to be used if you want it to be used, and it doesn't have to be restricted to companies and individuals. You can have companies bill other companies. So what MemberSuite will do, actually probably can just go here and look at a billing run, and if we look at, see the members of this run and find all the organization members. Okay, so if I look at Booth Company and look at their membership, I can see that a few things happened. An order was processed and a drop happened, and that's because there are basically two records tied to this Booth Company. And if I look at the records tied to the Booth Company to figure out, well, why? This belongs to someone named Elise Brady. Okay, and Elise Brady is an Alliance member, and because she's an Alliance member, if I look at the Alliance product here, Alliance product is set to build primary organization. So because of that, MemberSuite billed not Elise, but billed her company. And her company, as you would expect, is the Booth Company. And that's why the Booth Company got the invoice and not Elise. But I can also override that by changing the bill to. So I could have a company's membership get billed to another company. And the system looks at the bill to first to figure out where to bill. And if it's not set, then it looks at the membership dues product to figure out if it needs to bill the primary org. And then if there's no bill to set and the membership dues product didn't tell it to bill the primary organization, then it just bills the owner of the membership, as you would expect. So to answer the question, yes, corporate billing can have organizations billed to other organizations. Okay. So just going through the rest of the question here. If a person has a saved payment, but they have chosen not to be auto-renewed, will they be renewed when you process renewal billing activities? Yes. Okay. So, well, excuse me. Yes, they have, if they have chosen. Okay, excuse me, I misunderstood your question. No. So if on the membership, if I have, there's this do not renew field here, okay? If this set is set to true, then a person will be omitted from the membership billing run. Okay, so if they've opted not to be renewed, they will not be included in the membership billing run. If this is false, then they'll be included. They just won't have their membership card charged. But the billing run, the billing engine will respect this field. Okay. Okay, just going through the rest of the questions here. Well, the next question is a good one. What about people who don't have email addresses? Okay, so the question, when people don't have email addresses, the billing module was actually designed for that. If I go, obviously no email will be sent because I don't have an email address, but if I go back to the billing run, I have this option to print invoices. Okay, the print invoices option will allow me to actually physically print the invoices that came out of the run. Okay, and so what will happen is it'll go and it'll generate a workflow, and you'll get either email when it's done, or it'll generate right away depending on how many you have. But you can then print the emails that came out of the billing run, and then print them and stuff them in envelopes and actually physically mail them. So the system, billing module, was designed understanding that a lot of folks will not have email addresses and will not get them. Okay, so the next question is, can a person choose not to save their payments? Yes, they can. Okay, so if I go and I say, okay, I go to checkout here, and I say pay with a new credit card, I have the option to save it or not to save it. Okay. So we allow the user to do that. There's a question about whether or not the association can turn that off, and currently they can't. But we do not store the credit cards in our database. We actually store the credit cards in Amazon's key value store, which is PCI compliant and PCI certified, and we store it encrypted in that store. And the encryption key lies on another server. So you would have to compromise multiple systems, including Amazon's key value store, to ever actually get the physical credit card number. So we actually built security very deeply into this process. And actually, the reason why we originally did not include this in our system is because we really wanted to be careful with security. So we spent a lot of time making sure the credit cards were secure before we stored it. Next question is, if you wanted to print only those without emails, how would you do that? It's actually a very good question. You should be able to do that. Um, let's see, we go here. So this, the renewal orders, like anything else, you can do a view full screen. Okay. And you should be able to, and I'm doing this on the fly, but you should be able to go and take all the orders and find all the orders where the owner email address is blank. Okay. And so long as you include the newest invoice here, and you should be able to do it. Oops. Yeah, here we go. And include this, you should be able to save it. We haven't actually tried that. It's actually a very good question. We'll take a note of that. That seems like it makes a lot of sense. You might want to do a billing run and only print invoices for people who have no email, or only print a subset of the invoices in the billing run. So we'll look at that, but I think you can with the way that it is now. Okay. And the release notes, for those of you that are not already, let's see. That have not gotten the email, in Zendesk, in our support portal, we actually have all these release notes posted, and we link to them in the email I shot you. So hold on, I'm just pulling that up. There's a question here about where those release notes are. You should really subscribe to this forum I'm going to show you, so you can always get updated information. So inside of our email, our support ticketing system, we have this Winter 14 release notes, and this actually has all of the items that were added into the product. So we only went through a dozen or so today, but there's obviously a lot of bugs that were fixed. Okay. So the next thing to talk about is is your portal. So many of you have custom portals. Okay, and that's custom portals overall. It's something internally we're taking a really hard look at how to do better, and not just in terms of creating them, but also maintaining them, preventing releases from breaking customizations that have been done. And there's a lot of work we're going to have to do around going through and defining what's been built, because lots of times the custom portal is the result of several people over a long period of time iterating and changing things and requesting new things, and so lots of times it's difficult for us to know whether or not something's broken when we release. So there's going to have to be some significant work going back and documenting what was already done, but also we need to have a much more deliberate process starting with this release of how we merge portals and how we put them live. Previous to this release, we actually merged portals before the release went out. We're not doing that anymore. What we're doing now is putting the release out and merging people's portals and asking for them to approve it. So we're actually doing the internal testing, asking them to approve it before we actually put the merged portal out. Okay. So those of you who are using our baseline portal will see all these new features immediately. Those of you who are using a custom portal, we're going to be scheduling your portal for upgrade. And we're going to be in a very deliberate way testing it to make sure nothing breaks. A lot of this, we go back and forth internally as a SaaS company, as a cloud-based company. We don't really want to be doing merges. We don't really want to be doing changes to customization. But we realized very early on in this company that the portal was going to be something that required so much versatility and so much ability to deal with your requirements and your workflows that short of building our own programming language, there was no way to get away from it other than doing what we've done, which is making the portal a separate application that's open source, that lives out in GitHub, and allowing the portal to be customized against our API. The consequence of that is also that we want to innovate. We don't want to give you your portal and then say, hey, great, your launch, you're not going to get another update until you pay us to do something. We want to add new features, and we want you to get massive new functionality for free as a result of the community telling us what you want. And the consequence of that is that there's going to have to be merging. The only way we can give you the flexibility that you all, quite frankly, demand in your portals and still innovate at the rate we want to innovate, there's going to have to be some very deliberate work to merge your portals, to be very thorough about it, to provide enough transparency that you don't wake up one day and find your portal not working, which essentially makes the system look unstable to you. And so we're working through processes over the next few weeks to do that and do that well, and we're going to be communicating those to you, but it just means that there's going to be a significantly amount more work that needs to be done. For those of you that have custom portals, some of you have portals where hundreds of hours have been spent on various processes. That's obviously more difficult than if you've customized a couple of pages. But either way, we have to go through and test it to make sure that you don't wake up and find your portal broken. So we're going to be sharing and being very transparent over the next few weeks about what we're going to be doing from our process standpoint to make sure that doesn't happen anymore, starting with this release. But you should expect to get information from us about when your portal is getting upgraded early next week, and we're going to be working to go as quickly as we can in that process. All right. Well, we ran over a little bit here. If you have questions that we didn't answer, just shoot them over. Actually, we have those questions. We'll actually reach back out to you. We'll log them as support tickets and reach back out to you about them. But hopefully you all have found this helpful, and we're really excited about this release. We're going to be testing. We're continuing a regression test. We should be looking to the initial release tonight, unless anything happens that, barring something we find during our final testing that makes us feel like we shouldn't. And tomorrow. So we've sent an email out about our upgrade maintenance windows being tonight from 11 to 3 and tomorrow from 11 to 3. And we're going to be just manning the ship during special hours this weekend so that anything that comes out of the release we can address prior to Monday. And we're just excited to be able to bring you this functionality and to be able to demonstrate that we are listening to your feedback and building a better product every week, every month. So thank you all for joining the webinar. Thank you all for your time, and thank you for being MemberSuite customers. And look for a brand new product on Monday. Thank you very much, and have a great day.